The BBC is under severe pressure to play that Christmas #1 contender parodying Sir Keir Starmer's winter fuel cuts. Are we allowed to play it, Ryan? Ryan, are we allowed to play it? Have we got a bit of it now? This song is by Sir Starmer and the Granny Harmers. I want you to download it. I want it to go to #1. Little Suso, coming up now. Play.
It'll be freezing this Christmas while our money goes abroad. It'll be freezing this Christmas. Rachel Reeves is a fraud. It'll be cold, so cold, without fuel at home this Christmas.
How good is that? I mean, that is the reality if you're a pensioner. Russell Quirk has joined me. How good's that song?
It's phenomenal. Everyone should download it. How appropriate, and what a message to send to a government that someone goes to the effort of writing it, producing it, getting it out there, and millions of people, a bit like that petition that was signed, which is at nearly 3 million for a general election, millions and millions of people are going to download that track and talk about it for a long time.
And it's very interesting, isn't it? Because as we know, the BBC so utterly biased, so utterly... I mean, it's still... How long? 16 months, 15, 16 months since the atrocities by Hamas, that terrorist organisation. We were doing another show just now. Still, the BBC does not call Hamas a terrorist organisation. Are they going to play that? Daring to insult the bedwetting Labour government. Can't wait, man.
How can those... Seriously, how can the BBC, so Radio 1, Radio 2 and so on, how can they not play it if it becomes the most downloaded track of Christmas?
Do you not remember...
Are they going to ban it?
Well, they banned Frankie Goes to Hollywood. Relax. Because they had the word... Do you know why they banned that? They didn't play the Sex Pistols?
Yeah, but this hasn't got offensive words in it. No. It might be...
Sorry, can we hear it again? I'm going to do this all day. This is utterly fantastic. If you haven't heard this, download it. This is by Sir Starmer and the Granny Harmers. This needs to be Christmas #1. We need to pressurise the BBC across all formats to play this. This must be #1. Have another go.
It'll be freezing this Christmas while our money goes abroad. It'll be freezing this Christmas. Rachel Reeves is a fraud. It'll be cold, so cold, without fuel at home.
It's brilliant, man.
Without inciting anything inappropriate, of course, Jeremy. Go
and download. It's not inciting anything.
Hear me out. So, you know what Steve Bray used to do whenever someone was being interviewed near Downing Street or at College Green? He'd come along with his megaphone and play music.
Oh, the mornings, he's put me to shame.
Why don't we encourage a few peaceful protesters to stand outside Downing Street playing that track?
Absolutely. All you see in Downing Street and you see in Trafalgar Square, and we're going to the Commons tomorrow night, aren't we?
I'm not important enough to have been invited.
Oh, God, here we go again. Anyway, I'll sort it. Anyway,
although I was in the room last night with Nick Candy and Nigel Farage.
Straight off the plane. How was that?
So that was, well, I'm sworn to secrecy, of course, but let's just say that there was a very, and I mean very, positive buzz in that room. Liz Truss was there, lots of very interesting people.
I think Liz Truss will turn to reform.
I couldn't possibly comment on the question that I asked her, which is in a very, very similar vein.
Do you think that they would accept her?
I'm sure they would, but she's neither confirming nor denying such a thought.
So let's move from what I hope is the Christmas #1 to the very story you just mentioned. Elon Musk, there was that great picture a couple of days ago in front of a portrait of Donald Trump in cricket whites, ludicrous, in Mar-a-Lago. A picture of Nick Candy, the new billionaire treasurer of reform. He'd flown to Mar-a-Lago, fitted and arranged the meeting with Elon Musk, took Nigel Farage with him.
Yep.
There's the picture on the screen. There are really, really strong rumours that Elon Musk could decide to bankroll Farage and the Reform Party. Let me just ask you this. Is that genuinely, though, I'm not talking about the fighting machine, going to beat the two-party system that will never seemingly allow another party to get enough votes to form a government?
Look, I think...
Do you know what I mean by that?
Look, let me just qualify that despite the fact I was in a very interesting room full of very interesting people last night, I don't know anything, right? So they definitely didn't start talking amongst themselves as to exactly what their approach, strategy, tactics are going to be. But is it more than a rumour? Yes, I think it is. There is no way that Nigel Farage and Nick Candy, a business person whose wife, of course, Holly, was
Holly
going
Valance,
to be, potentially going to be...
named after a sheet.
She was going to be a Reform candidate in the previous election, decided not to at the last minute. It's much more than a rumour. There is no way those guys go over to Mar-a-Lago for an audience with Donald Trump and also Elon Musk.
On a private jet, by the way.
I suspect, this is pure speculation, Nick Candy and Nigel Farage have it exactly in mind what they're going to do in terms of bankrolling reform now to another level that I don't think we've seen in British politics
But my
before.
question is not that. Is it going to make any difference when you've got a two-party system and they got 4 million votes?
So here's what's going to happen. I don't know if Elon Musk is going to put any money into Britain. Many people will say, well, that's completely inappropriate. Well, then I ask you to look at how the Labour Party has been funded over the last 30 or 40 years.
And the Tory Party.
To the tune of millions of pounds of union money and donors, of course. And let's talk about the Lib Dems taking money from convicted fraudsters many years ago, not paying it back, right? So let's not do the virtuous bit around donations. And I suspect even if Elon Musk is going to give some tips to the likes of Nick Candy and Nigel Farage, there will be a political revolution, a sea change in British politics over the next 2 or 3 years, guaranteed.
You absolutely believe that?
I absolutely
love your thoughts on this, peeps. Do you think reform, if they get that money, even if they get Elon Musk's ability to understand how to run a business via Nick Candy and Nigel Farage, will it make a difference? Can they essentially beat, if you like, a system that's lasted forever? All the main parties will never talk about proportional representation. Reform are, the Liberal Democrats are, because the Reform Party got 500,000 more votes than the Liberal Democrats and got 67 seats less. So there has to be something to balance out. What do you make of that, peeps? 0344 499 1000. You can add in your thoughts on that Christmas potential number one. Let's talk about Wasby Women. This sort of broke in the show yesterday.
This is a disgrace.
Another extraordinary example of this pillock Starmer not understanding and alienating a huge swathe of this country.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's incredible to have to, almost on a weekly basis, add to the list of people that Keir Starmer and his government have slighted. Those that he's taken by surprise in terms of pensioners, farmers and business people, whereby he has taxed them, taken money from them and so on. But who would have thought a man that stood there with his front bench, the likes of Angela Rayner and others, with placards saying how they will support the Wasby Women, to the tune of putting aside, I quote verbatim, putting aside tens of billions of pounds to help these women that now are coming up to retirement and having to wait another 5 years over and above what they expected to do. 5 months in government, yet again, they've turned around, stuck their fingers up at these women and just said, yeah, sorry, we're not feeling it. It's a disgrace, Jeremy.
But I go back to the question I asked earlier, right? Does nobody talk into this man's head? Because there's people you can upset, right? But I would have thought pensioners 10 million, Wasby Women 3.5 million, farmers 2 million, Brexiteers 17 million. I would have thought that these people were going to have a massive say when the next election comes around. I know a lot of people go, but Jez, let's be perfectly honest, like, it doesn't really matter. They'll have forgotten. Pensioners ain't going to forget. Wasby Women ain't going to forget.
They're not
He's
gonna
an
forget.
idiot,
They're not going to forget this. So this campaign has been going on for years and years and years. This stuff, this change in the pension rules has been going on for whatever it is, 15 years or so. I think, look, if you want to give Starmer the benefit of the doubt politically, which is a very hard thing to do, frankly, a very difficult thing to do. I think you can. But it might well be that he and his lot, his advisors, have identified the people that they don't think are ever going to vote for them, so we may as well upset them. Whether that be pensioners that traditionally he would think vote for the Conservatives, farmers and indeed business people and so on. But when it comes to ordinary working women that are still working women and now have got to work, I mean, it's the epitome of an about turn.
Let's explain to people, they thought they could retire at 60.
Yeah. And now 65.
Now it's 65 and soon to be 66.
But Starmer has talked incessantly about protecting working people. Now, the absolute example of that, a demonstration of that, is a woman in her late 50s that thinks that because she's worked all of her life, can look forward to a retirement in 2 or 3 years' time. Now, to literally pull the drawbridge up, stick your fingers up and say, sorry, you've got another 5, 6, 7 years. I mean, how is that helping working
Somebody
people?
said earlier, one wonders who the hell's advising this idiot. 0344 499 1000 is the telephone number. Text 87222. We will get you on between now and 7 o'clock. I mean, this is guaranteed to send most sane people through the bleeding roof. And I've kept it to now because it'll do something to my heart rate. New Year's Eve railway chaos as train managers announce strike over rest days, i.e. New Year's Eve, Christmas Eve, and every Sunday for 5 months. This is the Avanti, North West Line, Manchester-based. Can I just ask, are these not the people, I nearly said the wrong word, who got a massive pay rise just now from Labour when it arrived in 10 Downing Street.
Well, they've obviously, within the transport divisions of the public sector, they've all had various inflation-busting pay rises. So whether it's train drivers, whether it's workers, or indeed managers. It starts to feel, though, doesn't it, that this is less about money and conditions and pay and so on. And obviously, look, the unions wanted to protect what effectively are 1960s working practices, you know, the kind of everybody out thing, you know.
Yeah.
Why should we pick that up? Or, you know, don't you dare disturb my 1 hour lunch, because if you come in as a manager 55 minutes into my lunch and talk to me, my hour starts again. That stuff still exists. That's what's being protected.
Can I tell you a true story? This is genuinely true. First I did the Jeremy Carr show, that'll be 20 years ago, right? I've got I've got a live audience, I've got crew, I've got everything. About 20 minutes into the first ever show, the wire was caught, and I pushed my... This is symptomatic of Great Britain. I pushed my chair back. A bloke came out the shadows. He went, no, mate, listen, I know you're new around here. I'm cables and chairs, and if you do that again, we'll walk the hell out.
Yeah.
Spend the rest of the day moving me
and that is alive and well in our country.
I mean, that is alive and well in our country,
my point was going to be, and look, we've had lots and lots of union leaders, former union leaders on this channel, that's Steve Headley and Mick Lynch and so on. What I think we have to accept now is that this isn't so much about money and conditions, it's about anarchy.
Yeah.
It's about extreme left-wing individuals that masquerade as part of a union just to try and disrupt people, including commuters, because I guess maybe the left see commuters as rich people because they've got enough money to spend on...
I think the left see anybody as rich.
I know, but it's spite. This is spite. It's a disgrace. I don't understand. I mean, if I was in charge of this stuff, let's say I was the transport minister, whoever it is now, because
no, you can't because you haven't committed fraud.
Yes. So whoever it is at the moment until next week, I would just genuinely say you're all fired. And I actually, to hell with the consequences. Get the managers driving the trains, whatever. You've got to do what Thatcher did. I mean, remember her back in the early mid-80s when it came to the miners and others, to say, fine, you can fight me if you like, I'll fight you back and I'm going to win. You're all fired. Do that. Send a message.
Really interesting. Final story today. The recording of non-crime hate incidents should be scrapped in their current form. A police chief has said. Donna Jones, who we'd hoped to have on the show, but there are logistical problems. Hampshire's Police and Crime Commissioner said the practice should be subject to a lock, stock and barrel review. Somebody in the police talking sense.
But what even...
Non-crime hate incidents. What does that mean? Because I don't like your suit, I'm going to be arrested.
Look, I'm all for law and order, and, you know, there being laws, and obviously some are better written laws than others.
Yeah.
But why are we, and definitely the police, getting involved with things that by the very nature of what they're called, non-crimes?
Yeah.
It's for the birds.
But who made... I want to know, because we're very easily, and right, I think, to criticise the men and the women on the streets who are doing this. This has got to come from above. Peter Blexley always tells me this is because academia has taken over the police, and the people above have never served on the streets. They've got no idea. It's about spreadsheets and ticking boxes and all that rubbish. And actually, they don't know what it is to be a copper. So who's to blame for this crap?
Well, it's legislation, but it's also legislation that is wrongly interpreted. I mean, let's take the example of Alison Pearson, where she gets a knock on the door by the police that want to chastise her for something that she said that they believe was inappropriate. And of course, look, nothing has happened. They've now dropped that. It's because that there are certain woke, left-leaning members of the police force, the civil service, name your public sector, that because there aren't actually crimes to stop the people that they don't like on the right saying what they don't want them to say, they masquerade things as being offences that aren't quite offences, and that now allows and actually ties up the resources of our police. No wonder there's no burglars caught. No wonder there's, you know, we were just talking on another show about the crime in London under Sadiq Khan.
Crazy.
3.5 million offences, 160 murders, whatever it is, 18,000 knife crimes, while the police are knocking on journalists' doors saying, we would like to take you into the station to talk to you about a few words that you said on
in
social
2005, 0344 499 1000, the Wasby Women have been stung by Starmer and Labour, says Graham in Bushy. Do you know that I was conceived in Bushy? Moving on.